Good evening and welcome to OmniBros Live. We asked the question, what if Jess's computer had worked properly?
And we would have been here 5 minutes ago.
That's right. We'd have been here 5 minutes ago because I had no sound. But now here we are in all our what if glory, where we're going to be asking the important questions tonight. What if? And I'm OmniDog, joined as always by Comics Guide. How's it going, buddy?
Hey!
And the Omnibus Collector himself.
I don't have a fancy microphone.
I know, and I can't get mine to sit right. I need a fancy one like Lou. It's a good microphone, but I just can't. It's got to be like right here, and I can't get it there.
Dude, this whole kit was about $70,
including the mic.
Including the mic.
The phone.
I basically just looked up what is the most affordable but best mic, and this is what came up.
What if Jess had Lou's microphone?
I think I sound a lot better than before. So
oh yeah, you do, and you sound great. That's why I need my microphone to work, because I sounded good on it too.
Yeah, I'm getting into making videos and stuff again, so I'm still getting used to the settings on it as far as what's too high, am I gonna peak when I talk into it and stuff like that. So I'm figuring it out.
What do you have?
This is my mic. Hi.
Is that the mic to a camera?
Yeah, this is my camera.
Is that plugged in?
Not to my computer, no.
Oh, okay.
No, I was filming earlier.
Wow, you got a fancy camera for filming. That must why you have 1 million viewers on TikTok. And he's dead air now, but okay. So tonight we're talking about what if scenarios, and what if IST was our sponsor. Thank goodness they are. Okay, wait. I'm running the board, so I've only got like 3 of the cool things. I don't have any good things. There, I have that. In-stock trades where you can get your collector editions up to 50% off. Loyalty discounts add 2% to that. In a couple weeks, it's going to be the end of the month already, and we're going to be giving away a $50 gift card from In-Stock Trades to a lucky viewer out there. $50 or more in an order in the United States gets you free shipping, fabulous customer service, fabulous packaging. That's InStockTrades.com. Thank you. Okay. That's it for my special effects. And now the light's like blinding me. Blinded by the light. Do. Revved up like a douche. Okay. What if Deadly Paws of OmniDog met Hip Hop OmniDog? Because now we've got Deadly Paws of OmniDog in the chat. Oh yeah, sorry. I do have the countdown, Sasmurf, but I'm used to Geo and Gabe working, and so everything sucks. Sorry. So tonight we're talking what if scenarios. But first, what if? Come up with a scenario for this gal, Riley.
Is that Dr. Light?
Dr. Light. What if Dr. Light were a Marvel character? This is a Marvel character, and I forget her name.
It looks like if Dr. Light was like inverted costume.
I forget who this is. This was like the peg warmer that they threw in for me to get the Build-A-Figure. And Tyler and I always forget who she is.
Someone is a fan of her and is really pissed off at me right now.
Whoa! What if it's Dark Star?
What if Dark Star was more relevant? Then that last 30 seconds would have gone very differently.
And I've still got the in-stock trades thing going. I might as well just let it go the whole time. Nobody would notice. What if Jess edited his videos? I've asked my viewers that before, and everybody says they don't want me to, which is good because I don't wanna.
It's a lot less work.
Yeah, it can be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and I haven't done a video in about a month, so I got to get a video on the air. I'm going to lose all my viewers as it is. So, yeah, I don't know. Mart76, do you not like my video? I don't care. I'm just not going to edit them. That's not me. You want the real me? I'm unedited. Look to these guys for edited videos. They do better videos than I do. I suck. So, yeah, I'm not a video editing type of guy.
Yeah, it's a pain. I only just recently started like trying to add background music into mine because I thought it was like they were kind of boring without some sort of just hum of something in the background. Plus, it can cover up if like there's any background noise of like my dog moving downstairs or something while I'm filming. So yeah, did you guys have any good what ifs? Because I feel like I dropped a bunch, but y'all were having some trouble thinking of things.
What if Riley had this lunchbox and not OmniDog?
When did you get that? Like, have you had that for a minute?
I just got it in the mail yesterday. I pre-ordered it from IST's sister company. I feel like it was back in April.
Okay. Because I remember seeing it, and I didn't know if I had seen it because it had been released or if it was because it was being solicited, but that makes sense. Did it come with anything inside, or was it just the...
No thermos or anything.
That's lame.
No Eltingville Club thermos with the tiny Eltingville Club cup.
I love figures of these guys. I love these guys. Especially this picture. So funny. They're all fighting over the lunchbox.
Just the recurring image over and over again.
Yeah, the infinity image.
No thermos on that feels like a missed opportunity, though.
What if the Eltingville Club cartoon had actually taken off? There's a what if.
That is a what if. That would have been so great.
You know, I'm gonna reverse the scenario and say, how would it, or what could you have done to make it take off? I think they tried it at the wrong time, because like if they had come in with that pilot episode after like the first few years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like let's say after the first Avengers movie, that was where there was really a bigger resurgence of like geek culture into the mainstream. And I feel like something like the Eltingville Club could have really succeeded, and I'm going to say could have even been as popular as something like Rick and Morty is right now, because it would have had that same like pop culture reference fueled content that people really love now.
I agree. That is it lends itself to such it's such a natural for animation, because the stories you can tell with those guys is just endless of what they're fighting over. They were fighting over bags of Wonder Bread with trading cards in them.
It could be like South Park, where they are constantly very referential towards whatever's currently happening, except it could be completely like what's currently happening in pop culture. So like, you know, if a certain movie is coming out, you would see the club fighting over like, you know, which issue of Suicide Squad is the best issue, and like, you know, why one of them would probably be like, oh, the older movie was the better one, like the James Gunn one is trash and all of you guys are dumb for thinking otherwise.
Isn't one of the ways that South Park does that though is their animation costs like $1.50?
They can finish an episode in about 7 days.
Yeah, they literally make the episodes in a week period, so like they're constantly right on track what's going on.
Which is why they tend to beat out things like The Simpsons and Family Guy to stay referential, because The Simpsons takes months to finish a single episode, but they have a huge staff. South Park takes like a week.
Yeah, by the time an episode of The Simpsons comes out, you're like, oh yeah, that happened last year.
Yeah, I think it takes them a year to animate that thing. And it seems simple, The Simpsons, but it takes, isn't it done in Korea, and they're doing all those episodes and really working hard on them, and it still takes them a year to do one episode or X amount of months.
Yeah, it's a good amount of time. I don't remember exactly. I haven't looked so much into it.
There's a lot of what ifs already. One from Taylor Brown. What if Taylor hadn't passed Jess's vault test? He thought so much of that question, he put it in twice. Oh, he corrected his grammar there. Okay. What if Taylor never made it out of Jess's basement? Why are these all about me? What if OmniDog read manga? What if Patty and Jess switched places? You guys would probably like it a lot more. What if Jess has the Deja Thor statue? Everything will make sense in the world. Uh-oh. This seems like a spiritual sequel to the Mad Libs and Pop-Tart tasting episode.
It might be heading that way.
Well, if we would get into, because so I have my what ifs. I came up with several. I just knocked off the top of my head. And the whole point being, like, we're going to talk about what if and then elaborate on how that change in the universe, whether it be Marvel, DC, or whatever, would impact these characters and impact the story. So just to like start things off, for instance, one that I had is what if, and I'm going to say I don't know every issue of what if, so I don't know if some of these are ideas that have already happened, but if they are things that have already happened, it'd be very coincidental if the idea that you had was exactly how the story played out. But what if, for instance, Bruce Banner didn't have the anger management issues that he has and actually could control the Hulk? What do you think about how the Marvel Universe would be different? Like, how would that story play out?
Have they done that?
I don't know if they've done one in What If, but there's so many different versions of the Hulk where, like, you know, Banner's retains his intelligence when he is the Hulk. But like, what if right off the bat, like, he never became the monster, but he could still.
He just stayed Bruce Banner, or he could become the monster whenever he wanted.
Think She-Hulk. Think Jen Walters. Like, he could be the Hulk whenever he wants, but he can completely control it. He's not hulked out. He's able to maintain his form and his intelligence at the same time, effectively being 100% capable of being a superhero instead of butting heads at times with the Avengers and other groups.
You asked a lot of. Should I read some of the ones that Lou put in the chat?
There are a select few that I would appreciate if you do not, because they involve certain people in a Facebook group that I am no longer a part of. But if you want to go ahead and do that, go ahead.
I wasn't going to say that one.
Okay.
I was going to use the racist ones. Here was a good. I think this is a good one that Riley came up with. What if Tony Stark never stopped drinking? I think that's a good one.
I think that'd be a good one for you to talk about.
So is he definitely sober because Robert Downey Jr. was like drinking scotch with Loki in the first Avengers movie, which I'm not saying those things are canon, but has he been sober ever since Devil in a Bottle?
He has had alcohol again, but it's never been something that completely took him over.
Yeah, he's fallen off the wagon a few times, but it's never been as bad as Demon in the Bottle.
Do they? I haven't read a whole lot of Iron Man, so I don't know. I have Marvel books that I like better, but is he considered an alcoholic in recovery now, or is alcoholism not part of his storyline?
Alcoholism's still part of his storyline. Like he's recovering, or I don't know all the linguistics about it, but
yeah, okay. So he's trying to not drink still.
Yes, he's actively pushing himself to continue to stay sober.
Okay. Well, just from my perspective, if you're an addict, and you've got access, unfortunately, he's got access. Well, no, it doesn't matter. You can got bottom of the gutter or the richest man in the world, and you'll find access to alcohol if you need it. But he's going through an awful lot of probably functions where there's a lot of alcohol present. That's one thing that I tried to cut out of my life. There was the most recent time that we had a neighborhood party, and there was alcohol there, and I could really smell it, and it was really affecting me. And fortunately, it was just 2 doors down. So after half an hour, I just left, and I'm also known as the grumpy man on the block. You know, old man yells at clouds and get off my lawn type of thing. So they just attributed it to my being grumpy, which is fine with me. They don't know that I have a problem with alcohol, anybody on the block, but I'm as opposed to all the people watching on YouTube. But I would, if he's going to never stop drinking in your what if, he's either going to be dead. There's only 3 choices. You're either going to die from it, you're going to end up in jail, or you have to get sober and stay sober, because once it's in you, it's not like I can just switch it off. It's always with me. I saw this. This was a while ago. I can't remember her name. She was on Good Morning America, and she was a host, or she's a host for 2020. I can't think of her name, Elizabeth something. And she went into rehab for like a month, and she got out of it. And George Stephanopoulos, she was only in rehab a month. And George Stephanopoulos, she said she still had the craving. And he said, really? Like 1 month in rehab is going to cure her of the craving. I've been sober 13 years and I still have the craving. So that's part of the problem, is that society doesn't understand that you don't go to rehab and the switch gets turned off. It's like always with you. You just have to deal with it. So if he kept drinking, first of all, his marriage is over. Totally. His marriage is over. I think he loses his fortune and probably his brain, because if he keeps drinking, he's not a social drinker. He's going to be drinking to oblivion. So he's not going to have his fortune. He's not going to have he won't be Iron Man anymore. So he's losing his role in the Avengers. He's losing he loses everything, basically. He becomes a bum in the gutter. That's really the only thing that I can say, is that if he never stops drinking, he'll probably die from it.
I want to make my own opinion, my pitch, not opinion, because I don't know stuff about the alcoholism, but my pitch on, like, he'd be removed from the Avengers. He wouldn't have any place with the superhero community, like you're saying, because his alcoholism would affect everything too much, to the point that probably, while they're out, he messed something up and someone got hurt or killed, whether it be a civilian or a fellow Avenger. And like he'd lose his company, his fortune and all that, but I think he's still smart, and he's still going to find a way to do what he wants to do. And I believe that in this case, if Tony never became sober, if Tony never sobered up, he would become a supervillain, and he would become a major antagonist for the Avengers, but he would also constantly be drinking and fueling his alcoholism along the way. Maybe not constantly completely hammered or anything, and it wouldn't, I'm not wanting to play it to like a comedic extent like this. It'd be a very serious thing where like, you know, your drunken former friend is now coming at you like violently. And because he's upset that he got kicked out of everything that he was a part of. You know, founding member of the Avengers, and now he's had that stripped from him. And so he wants to destroy them because of that. However, he also finds that his alcoholism has completely and irreparably damaged his liver. And he only has a limited time before he can succeed in any sort of plan to take the Avengers out. So it's kind of this, if I'm going down, you're going down with me type of Hail Mary mission of his against the heroes. And I imagine the emotional impact by the end of the story is like him finding that, you know, something that he's done allows him to not be able to stand up against them. Like no matter how strong he is, whatever tech he created, he finds that like he's not able to take everyone on, and they don't want to hurt him because it's always been like for your better good. And he basically dies with a whimper and not a bang, and they lay him to rest respectfully.
Okay.
Jess, if you get a chance, check out. I don't know how well you know your 80s wrestling, but there was a famous wrestler named Jake the Snake from the 80s. He has an incredible story. If you get a chance to listen to it, he talks about it on Rogan. I could link it to you after. And he sums up what it's like when he was going through treatment and rehab. He was somebody that would go through treatment, go through rehab, and he would finish it, get the chip, and he'd walk out and make a phone call, and he'd have a guy that would hand him an 8-ball, basically.
Oh, he was a drug addict and a alcoholic, or just
yes.
Both.
Okay,
so he was both.
He was both. He goes into great detail, and basically he was saying that the best explanation for his addiction was that it's always with him, and that before he really got sobered up, it would basically just be doing push-ups in the corner waiting for him, like, I'll get back to you. That's basically how he would explain it. It wasn't until another wrestler came into his life, Diamond Dallas Page, who he allowed him to stay at his place for about 2 years. Allowed him to stay at his place for 2 years, and he sobered up thanks to him. It's an amazing story if you get a chance to listen to it.
Well, I know you linked me to the Joe Rogan interview with Artie Lang.
Yeah, wow.
Snorted his nose off because of ground glass and his heroin that he was snorting.
Yeah.
He has no nose, but he was that was an incredible story.
Yeah.
You know, having followed Artie for as long as I did, listening to the Howard Stern show, it always troubled me listening to him that he went into treatment for cocaine and came out and never did cocaine again, but he was constantly getting drunk. I was like, gee, I don't know that it's my place to judge, but I don't think it's good that he's drinking too, because and I guess he's sober now. I haven't heard the follow-up to that interview, but they wouldn't operate and give him a new nose until he had a certain amount of time sober, right?
Yeah, and his nose is rough. Look, He's
got one.
He really, he doesn't have one, basically.
Yeah. I don't know Jake the Snake at all. I apologize. I don't know anything about wrestling.
Okay.
I'm certainly interested in watching the interview.
Yeah, there's a few documentaries. I'll link you to the one that the interview that he did with Rogan, where he goes through his career and what happened with him. There was even there's a brilliant documentary series that has been coming out for I think 3 years now called Dark Side of the Ring. And it highlights all the shady stuff that went on in the 80s and 90s wrestling, a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and a lot of stuff of people that died. For example, they did an episode last year involving Bret Hart. Bret Hart and his brother Owen Hart. Owen Hart famously died in the ring during a pay-per-view from falling down from the rafters. And the wife did this whole investigation into it, and it turns out that the hook that they used to strap him in while he was coming down from the rafters, because that was kind of his gimmick, was a hook that had a tensile strength of something ridiculous, like 20 pounds. It should not have been a hook that they used at all.
Oh, wow.
So when he was coming down, the hook just gave out. And the last thing that you hear is Owen Hart going, "Watch out," right before he lands straight in the ring, and you hear a loud thud in the arena.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awful.
It's a great documentary series, but it is dark, like the name suggests.
Yeah, well, I can imagine in a sport where you're abusing your body so badly, and even though those are maybe choreographed tricks, I'm not going to step on anybody that's a wrestling fan. Even though they may be choreographed ahead of time, I'm not saying they are. Even if they may be, you're still punishing your body really badly.
Oh yeah.
And I'm more in. I'm surprised the entire wrestling industry isn't addicted to pain pills, because I can't imagine how badly beat up they feel every morning getting out of bed.
Yeah, it's something that's become more prevalent in the last few years, especially with the rise of CTE and the NFL. A lot of older wrestlers, you see their bodies and how they are now, and they are really banged up and really messed up. It's actually kind of sad to see. And you've got somebody like Chris Benoit, who he tragically murdered his wife and kids, and he took his own life. And then after they died, they did the examination on his body, and it turns out he had CTE. There were spots in his brain that from taking chair shots and from doing a bunch of headshots in the ring, which is why in today's wrestling culture, it's frowned upon if you take a chair shot to the head, or if you do too much damage to your head, or if you bang your head up too much. The audience will actively fight against it at this point, because it's just, they would rather see a wrestler live a long and healthy life than take a chair shot in the head.
Yeah. Let's see. Riley had, I don't like that question from Omar. What if Thor was permanently stuck as a frog?
I like that one.
I liked, what if Peter Parker never got rid of the symbiote? That's a good one.
That's a good one.
You want to riff on that?
Yeah, you guys want to go back and forth?
No, I'm talking to you, Riley.
Okay. So I guess you'd have to think back on like why he got rid of it. Like it was the detrimental effects it was having on him and his life and stuff. But I feel like on the other side, it could be that he decides to keep it because he enjoys what he's become with it. And over time, basically keeping the symbiote turns him further like Eddie was as Venom, and he would fall into an anti-hero role, where he starts to do things that are not 100% kosher for the superhero community to do, and it winds up being something that's like the symbiote being like a drug to him. Now, he wouldn't have the same trajectory of storyline as Eddie did, because Eddie eventually, of course, got cancer, and that, was one of the reasons why it left him in the first place. Mm-hmm. So Peter doesn't have any, develop any terminal illness or anything. The symbiote, if they develop a positive relationship with each other, like, he could continue to become stronger and stronger over time. And especially like if it still went through with the stuff that happens with like the current more recent Donny Cates run and stuff, where with the revelation,
god, he's basically a god.
What you learn more about what the symbiote is and where it came from, and he adopts all these other things, like you wind up having this like spider god now, the symbiote spider god on Earth.
Fargate's saying they just did that Peter Parker Spider's Shadow by Zdarsky. I haven't read that, so I don't know.
I haven't read it either, but if my story comes at all similar to his, like I said earlier, I don't know what all what if stories are. I've never looked into every single issue and every single thing. I know, like, you know, what if Aunt May became the Iron Granny or whatever, like, but I don't know every single storyline. So if we're talking on something that's similar to whatever, like, I'm just trying to flex my own creative muscles here, and I have no idea what Zdarsky did.
Go for it.
Or is doing. But yeah, that would be the basic outline, though. Like, I believe it would just become something like that, some sort of addiction for him. And I feel he just, whereas in the comics, like in the 2000s and stuff, he became part of the Avengers. I don't think that Spider-Man would ever join any teams unless it was like one of those rugged extreme 90s teams, like he might join up with characters like Ghost Rider and stuff. Sure. He'd have a lot more team ups with characters like that, but he also probably would not at all be able to maintain a relationship. So he wouldn't have been married to Mary Jane at any point, because she would have eventually left him for like the actions that he's taking. So, but it would be one of those situations where you see someone who's like unwilling to give up on their addictions and their vices and stuff. And she's like, you can have me or you can have the symbiote. And he's like, the symbiote gives me everything that I need. I don't need you. Like, it gives me strength and it gives me sustenance and it gives me power and it gives me purpose. And yeah, so he'd live a lot more hardcore, but a lot more of a lonely life is my belief there. I also think he'd just have killed Cletus Cassidy. Like, as soon as, if Carnage formed, he'd just be like, no, F you, and like rip him in half. So there you go.
What I can't remember because it's been so long since I read those issues. Why, I forget why they broke up. Why did he give up the symbiote?
It's just a negative effect on him, and he realized that the symbiote was kind of taking control.
Okay.
And I know a lot of it, like, it's been years since I read these stories, but I know that there were pieces of it, like, you know, it takes him out at night and like goes patrolling without him knowing, and he finds out about that, like, because he's exhausted in the mornings and stuff. And eventually, like, he's like, I can't take it anymore, I have to get rid of it. But it's like, if he embraced it is the question. Like, what if he didn't become bothered by those things, and he's like, or fought back instead and was like, you're mine. Like, I'm not yours. You are mine. And decided to control it a little more.
What if Spider-Man 3 was a good movie?
Then Venom would not have been a part of it.
You're not wrong.
The way, okay, what if, this is what I would do. I don't know about you guys, but like, Peter would have the symbiote throughout that movie, but he wouldn't get rid of it, and maybe until the very end, or that would have been saved until later. Because it's fine to have like that part of the movie in there and have Peter having those struggles. Some of them were kind of dumb, but it's just when you already have Sandman introduced as the tragic villain, and then you have Harry taking on this new Goblin role and taking up another villain slot just to also be like, oh, and here's Eddie Brock, and his whole entire, like, you see Peter's entire struggle. He gets the symbiote, has a struggle with the symbiote, loses the symbiote, and then the symbiote goes to Eddie Brock all within the span of like 2 hours, and then he fights Eddie Brock. It's too much in there. So
it was too much, yeah.
If they just moved that to the next movie and it was like the end of Spider-Man 3 is when he gets rid of it, and you see it go to Eddie, and then the fourth movie is like Eddie stalking Peter, and then eventually being like, it's me, Pete, I'm Eddie, and I'm also Venom, and I'm gonna beat the tar out of you. Also, if it wasn't Topher Grace, that would be good.
Well, Sam Raimi hates Venom. He didn't want to put him in the movie. That was a studio mandate. Sam Raimi is more of a fan of the classic villains, which is why he wanted to build up to the Vulture, and he was trying to build up to the Lizard and all those other characters.
Right.
But the studio came in and said, no, you got to put Venom in this movie because Venom sells tickets.
I would like to see the Lizard in a Spider-Man movie.
That'd be nice.
Amazing Spider-Man.
What was that?
He's in the Amazing Spider-Man. The first
No, he's
one.
not. That's not the Lizard. That's a Ninja Turtle.
It's a much better Lizard than Jamie Foxx was an Electro, or Paul Giamatti was the Rhino.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I am curious that they're bringing some of these guys back for this. Well, allegedly, they're bringing some of these guys back for this next Spider-Man movie, which I'm wondering how this is going to work. I think people should probably temper their expectations because I think at best we're just going to get little cameos and nothing huge.
Oh, because otherwise it'd be a 12-hour movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, those memes and stuff where they're like the expectations for the movie, and it's like every character ever plus
Batman's in it.
See, here's the thing. At this point, without any trailers, and this movie's supposed to drop in December, they have built up the expectation for this so high. I don't think whatever movie that people have in their heads, this is going to live up to. I think it's almost impossible.
Did they build it up, or did fans build it up?
Fans.
Okay.
I think fans have built up this expectation of what this movie is going to be inside of their head that there is absolutely no way this is going to live up to a lot of people's hype for this. I think they're expecting this movie to be where Tom Holland pops into the Andrew Garfield universe, and he spends half the movie with him, and then after that, he spends the other half of the movie with Tobey Maguire. I don't think that's exactly how this is going to go down.
Yeah, and I made a video where I talked about that, or I made a TikTok, and it was, I basically came and said the same things that you're saying, and then I stated, like, you know, it's not likely that either of the other Spider-Men are going to be in here, and if they are, it's going to be in small cameo roles. And as well, the same for like the old villains. Mm-hmm. And I also stated that, like, in my opinion, it would be really like reductive of the MCU Peter's storyline to do that, because his storyline in the first two movies and everything else we've seen him in has really been like, and mind you, this is it would also be working towards the biggest complaint that people have, is he hasn't been his own hero yet. Like, he's basically introduced as a sidekick for Iron Man. Mm-hmm. And the second movie is him no longer being able to rely on Iron Man, but he still is trying to find someone to lay back on, and starts to attach himself to Mysterio. Where we're left at the end of that movie, he, you know, is in this perfect position to start having to fend for himself and become his own hero without leaning back on someone else. And I said, you know, just having him have to rely on basically being helped by two older, better versions of himself would be terrible for the development of that character. Like, it's just basically telling you, like, this Peter Parker is never going to be his own hero without, you know, he's always going to lay back on someone else. When I think, like, it's possible that if they do small cameos and you see, like, even if it's not the actual actors there, but you see, like, Tobey's Spider-Man succeeding in doing something and, like, proving that he is his own hero, and, like, Tom sees that, he's like, I can do it. Like, I can do that. You don't have to have that be a huge role. It's just the witnessing of, like, what he can be, driving him to be like, you know what, even though the world thinks I'm a murderer, and even though you know, they know who I am and blah 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 blah, I can be the hero I need to be to save the multiverse alongside Doctor Strange. And not that he needs Doctor Strange, but that Doctor Strange needs him with the situation.
Well, technology has come such a long way too, that Tobey Maguire, who, what's the guy, probably in his 40s, 50s at this point. He's probably not in peak Spider-Man shape, but I mean, they could just CGI the suit on him, because Tom Holland's suit a lot of the time is just that. It's CGI. They just edit the suit on him, and he's wearing little, like, globes or something like that. I'm warning people right now, do not get super hyped up about this, simply because I'm sure the movie's going to be fine. It's probably going to be really fun. The last two ones I thought were really fun. I just think go in with tempered expectations, because I can already see the blowback happening of them going, that was it? Like, we just got 3 minutes of Tobey Maguire and 3 minutes of Andrew Garfield?
People, I used I equated it to eating a Skittle and thinking it's an M&M. That's what's going to happen. Like M&Ms are great, and so are Skittles, but you eat one thinking it's the other, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
I think my feeling is that every Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland needs at least 50% more Aunt May.
That's a great segue into another one of my what ifs, Jess. And
I saw that
may have happened before, but what if it was Aunt May that got killed instead of Uncle Ben?
So Uncle Ben is the survivor, and he feels guilty about Aunt May.
How do you think that would have differed? Like what?
Well, his childhood, well, I guess his teenhood is going to be different because he's not going to have the loving, the sort of nurturing, caring hand of Aunt May, because men are just different. And Uncle Ben's going to be not only just grieving for his lost partner of that long, but he's not going to know what to do with Peter as intuitively, in my opinion, as Aunt May did. So I would say that he may turn up, Spider-Man would turn out to be a different person then if he has, well, yeah, I'm going to stick with it. I would say that he's not, Uncle Ben wouldn't be the anchor for him that Aunt May is, because Uncle Ben as a man goes through grief differently, and probably, let's say I'm Uncle Ben, I wouldn't be able to, it's hard enough for me to relate to a teenage boy and what he's going through. But then I lose my wife too. I think Spider-Man doesn't get that emotional anchor that Aunt May provides for him.
I think especially if you're looking at the way it was written in the 60s, because there are the various very stereotypical like gender roles, and so Aunt May does fall into the very maternal role with Peter. I mean that makes a lot of sense. You think about as positive as an influence that Uncle Ben was on Peter, like, yeah, how does he deal with his grief and be like, does he share his words of wisdom with Peter that, you know, great power, great responsibility, or does Peter take with him something else from Aunt May instead? Yeah. Aunt May say something in her final days that also he doesn't get wheat cakes for the rest of his life.
I like Cleveland Brown's response, if you could highlight that. We'll have a hot Uncle Ben instead of a hot Aunt May and Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Yes, it would be Billy Zane. It would be Billy Zane, like, of course.
And as much as I like Jon Favreau, and I think he's brilliant, I am not into his character dating. I just don't see it. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. So
she like them thick. She like big boys.
He's getting bigger. I mean, I saw him in Swingers, and he was great in that role. But that was 25 years ago. Vince Vaughn was just magic in that movie.
Hey,
like he different from then to now.
He can blow up to Orson Welles levels for all I care if he keeps doing Star Wars stuff. Okay, that's as long as he keeps putting out
Mandalorian.
Yeah, if he keeps putting out quality stuff like Orson Welles, like if he keeps putting out quality stuff like Mandalorian, I don't care if he's the size of a planet. Okay,
that's fair.
You know what I'm gonna add to your Spider-Man is I think that Peter might not actually embrace the role of Spider-Man if the roles were reversed, because he wouldn't have that inspiration to go out and do things. And depending on the way that like Uncle Ben reacts and grieves with his wife's death, Peter might feel very guilty in a very different way, and instead decide that he needs to suppress everything and hide his abilities because of how guilty he feels. And he feels guilty seeing his uncle, assuming that Aunt May dies in a way that's similar where like Peter could have prevented it. He's going to feel even more guilty in this situation if Uncle Ben is not sitting there like trying to be emotionally supportive with his nephew, you know? So I would imagine this situation would be like basically Peter only has one stint as Spider-Man and then decides never again, and like hides the fact that he has abilities completely. And he only winds up using like the fact that he has spider senses to like help him with, you know, he decides to play sports or something, like maybe he has better agility, so he becomes a college sports star and uses his abilities very lightly in that.
Don't go putting words in my mouth. I totally did not say that. I'm not okay with that. And the George Costanza thing, I think, is even weirder.
She dated George Costanza?
In the Seinfeld episode for like half an episode, and then she finds out, I forget what she finds out, that he's a phony or something, and but it all lines up perfectly. He's like, I'm dating Marissa Tomei, and she played herself in the episode, and they met cute and on a park bench or something. I can't remember, but he blows it. And that picture of me is ridiculous.
Hey, I've got one. This one's kind of pertaining to the movies, though. And this one actually, it's kind of a cheat because it could happen. But what if Killmonger never died at the end of Black Panther? If Killmonger never died at the end of Black Panther, we've got, unfortunately, the timely passing of Chadwick Boseman. There needs to be a mantle that needs to be filled. You can have an entire redemption arc for the character of Killmonger in a Black Panther movie to the point where he eventually does take up the mantle.
I think it would. I could imagine it being something similar-ish to seeing Winter Soldier.
Yes,
like that. Go from him being like Winter Soldier to then becoming the version of Bucky that we know now. And obviously, that's a little bit different because it's like brainwashing and stuff. But I feel like that could be an excellent like, and that this is something I don't think they really have in the MCU, but it could be a very excellent like rival type relationship between T'Challa and Killmonger.
Yep.
Harkening back to stuff like in, you know, just for manga's sake, like an easy one like Goku and Vegeta, or like Naruto and Sasuke.
Yep.
Like Goku and Vegeta, or Goku and Piccolo being a really good example. They fought, and then afterwards they become these rivals and eventually, you know, friends and partners, and the relationship would evolve over time. And I think that would be a really meaningful development.
It would take a while, obviously, to get through
here.
What?
Did we really just go into Dragon Ball Z?
Yes.
You lost me there for the whole segment, so I don't.
Just a little bit.
What were you going to say?
I personally would like to see it. I think a redemptive story arc could work, especially with the fact that eventually they will have to either recast or find somebody else that will fill the role of Black Panther. They could go the route like in the comics where Shuri takes on the mantle. I personally think they're not there yet for her character. We'll see how that pans out over the next film, especially with them just announcing today that Riri Williams will make her first appearance in Black Panther 2, which that makes fucking perfect sense considering Wakanda technology and all that other stuff. It just fits. I would love to see Michael B. Jordan come back and reprise Killmonger. I still think Killmonger... Yes. I still think Killmonger is the best villain that the MCU has had.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%.
Like, yes, Thanos wiped out half the universe and all that, but sympathetically and character-wise, I feel I understand and relate to Killmonger's side a lot more than a genocidal maniac.
Yeah, who snaps his fingers and magic happen. Much more believable.
Speaking of Thanos, I did have, and I'm going to word it a little bit different than I did in the chat.
Yeah.
What if Death did love Thanos?
Oh God.
So as far as I know, he never can please her, right? It's never enough to please her. is
Right.
death has been personified as a woman, I guess, and or whatever it is they are. He's never been able to please her. So you're saying, what if they like did fall in love and he was able to please her? So you're saying, like, what if they settle down and he gets all fat and they have little baby?
I want to see. I really want to see child support Thanos. That would be an interesting.
Thanos in like a wife beater and slippers, drinking a bud.
Watching reruns of Gilligan's Island.
No, the coconut phone doesn't work, Gilligan.
Well, I think that's an interesting one because that means his whole purpose has been satisfied then.
Right.
He doesn't have to kill anybody anymore. He, for some time period, what if they go through a like really nasty divorce and he decides everybody needs to die?
You know what you were basically describing Al Bundy. Thanos becomes Al Bundy. He's living his glory days. I almost killed the Avengers once, right? That's his touchdown. That's basically his touchdown.
I think though, if Thanos and Death, let's put eloquently, like if they fell out of love, I think his revenge would be, and this would be interesting, stopping anyone from being able to die. Like eliminating death from the universe, being like, okay, well, you don't love me anymore, then because I feel like initially what I wanted to say was, if Death reciprocated the love that Thanos has for her, that Thanos would basically die. Like he would kill himself and be able to be with her, and that's his life. His entire goal is just, he wouldn't have to worry anymore. He would die. But then I thought about it for a second longer and I was like, yeah, but like, what does that really mean? And so I then realized it would turn him into like a harbinger of death. Yeah. And he would more or less become just her right-hand man. But if the relationship soured and she was no longer interested in having him, I would imagine she would throw him back to life and he would be like, well, I'm going to find a way to not let you have anyone ever again, and use the powers of the Infinity Gauntlet to eliminate death from the universe.
Has it been communicated to Thanos that death, the only way to her heart, so to speak, is through taking more lives? Is there like a story that idea, or did he just come up with it and say, I love death and the only way to please her is to kill people on a grand scale to provide her with more business or whatever? For lack of a better word,
more clients.
It's a pyramid scheme.
Death is a pyramid scheme in the Marvel.
Like, how does he know that the only way to her heart is through killing more people?
Or maybe that's not actually the way to her heart, and that's why she never reciprocated love.
Right.
Because he was always wrong.
Oh, here's a good question, because this would tear all of our worlds apart. What if Riley never became the Omnibus Collector?
He would be the manga collector.
I would have started the channel as the manga collector and then eventually start making more videos about comics, and then people would be like, why don't you make manga videos anymore?
And he would be a weeb with cat ears. That's basically what it would be.
Oh god, that would also be, what if I never married my wife, and what if I never had any shame?
He would be a weeb with cat ears that follows, what's that K-pop group that's super popular right now?
Oh, BTS.
Yeah, he'd follow BTS around the country.
Well, I think you've been such a huge influence on people in collecting Omnis, including me, that my collection would be completely different. And I think there are lots of people out there that you've influenced. Actually, both of you have influenced to like collected editions more than just floppies. Now that I think about it, for both of you, because you guys are two of the guys that I started watching on YouTube first in my collecting career back in like, I don't know, 2012 or 14, whenever it was. And I started reading Riley on Tumblr and would get pissed whenever he and his family would take a vacation because it'd be like 2 weeks before he'd write on Tumblr. And I was really angry. Like, where is this guy? I need all his info on these.
Not allowed to have. He can't have a life.
Yeah, I'm like, just write some stuff on Tumblr. I'm like waiting for all your Tumblr stuff, and then I found out you made videos and things like that. It got better.
I am fairly certain we have cost somebody's marriage at this point with our influence in the books we bought and stuff like that. I am almost 100% sure somebody's lost a marriage, somebody's lost some financial stability because of us.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
Well, I definitely remember seeing 2 or 3 people when I was a member of the Omnibus Facebook group. I can remember at least 3 guys. They weren't women, they were guys. And they went through that phase where they just bought a ton of crap all at once. And then a year later, they're having a fire sale on like all of it because it affected their marriage and everything else was going south. And I need money, blah, blah, blah. That happened at least 3 times that I remember.
Yep. Yeah, I always wish I could go back and tell myself like what to and to not buy. That's what I always like go back on, because I'm like, man, I'm like selling off so many paperbacks and stuff because I'm trying to like be more of a format hog or like format snob. Except for that.
Thank goodness for Geo.
And I'm like, man, what if I told myself, like, if I could go back and tell my past self, like, yeah, don't buy all these. I'd also tell myself, like, don't sell this because you're going to try and get it again later and it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
I need to use the restroom, but in the meantime, why don't y'all talk about if Thor was permanently stuck as a frog?
Or we could go to the chat.
I like that idea better. It's the top of the hour. Jess, why don't you tell them about our sponsor?
Okay, wait. And I can do this. Banners. InStockTrades.com, where you can get the top of the hour. Drop the jingle there. InStockTrades.com, where you can get your collected editions up to 50% off. Loyalty discounts add 2% to that. The end of every month, we are fortunate enough to have a gift card donated to us by In Stock Trades to give away to a lucky viewer like you, worth $50 to spend at IST. $50 or more in an order can get you free shipping in the United States, will get you free shipping in the United States. Fabulous customer service, fabulous packaging. That's in stocktrades.com. And here you go, Max. Here's a little mouth harp to end that one up. Okay, great. Thank you, buddy. Okay, InStockTrades.com. What if Amazon bought IST? Then our packages would no longer be coming to us well packed.
That'd be interesting.
That'd suck. They do own Comixology. Wonder if they could, wow, that's interesting. That's actually an interesting question. What if they bought DCBS and IST?
The packaging will be terrible.
The packaging would be terrible.
But you get your books same day delivery or 2-day shipping.
Right, overnight.
Yeah. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, it is a trade-off. But I just got a book today that came perfectly.
You would lose Emily, though.
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't have Emily because Yeah, she's not gonna. She's not working for Amazon and their customer service. She's gonna say, "See ya."
No, you get some Indian guy
named Bob
or something like that. Yeah.
Nothing against Indian guys, because we have a T in the chat who brought it up.
Yep. Love you, buddy.
Yeah. I'm going to let you hang on that one for a while. You can twist in the wind. What if Jess allows Omar back in his basement? Not happening. And he knows it now, too. Joe Chip said, if Riley had never become the Omnibus Collector, I'd be rich enough to retire. Godfather of the show. There's that horrible picture of me. I guess that's not that bad of a picture. A booktuber named Mike's Book Reviews just name dropped Omnibus Collector in one of his videos as a resource to getting into manga. Why is he called the Omnibus Collector then?
I saw that guy. Mike's Book Reviews. Whenever on the YouTube like creator app, you get a notification from someone who's like, I think 100K or more, like a comment, it gives you a notification. Oh. And I had a few people, and he watched a few of my videos and talked about them. So I'll have to thank him for the shout out. He didn't tag me or anything though in whatever shout out he gave me.
What if young Jess became a roadie or tour manager for a punk band? I almost became a caddy for an LPGA golfer.
Wait, hold up.
When I was 22, right out of college.
Really?
Yeah.
How much
she was a pretty good golfer. She won at least one tournament. I'm not going to say her name because she's retired and everything. I doubt that she wants me to say her name. But at the time, she was, I guess, maybe a couple years older than I was. If I was 22 or 23, she was probably 25. She was local in where I grew up, in the Monterey Bay area. And she was really good, and she needed a new caddy because her former caddy, she said, had snorted all his paychecks up his nose. And I said, well, I won't do that. She said, well, think about it. And I forget what happened. Some life-changing thing happened, and I didn't become the caddy. But that would have been interesting.
How much do caddies make?
That took a turn I didn't expect. I bet. They get paid 10% of the pros' winnings that week.
Are you serious?
But they didn't have the purse, especially for the women. Back in the 80s, they didn't have the purse now that they do for women.
Oh.
But, I mean, 10%, if she falls in the top 10, if she wins, I mean, if she does well enough that she goes in the finishes in the top 10, it could have been a couple grand a week.
Wow.
A week, yeah. And
That's
then
great.
You know, you got to save your money because the next week she could finish 30th and you're getting 10% of $1,500. So Riley's not. Oh, why do I feel like Riley's cheating on us? He went to the bathroom, but you meant with TikTok.
Oh, I mean, I'm not making so many waves on there right now. That app is so fickle. Like, and I'm not talking about the people on there, but like the app itself, I think their algorithm, because like if you, I took a vacation and I didn't make but like a few videos while I was out just to tell people like I'm on vacation, and like it didn't push any of my content. Like it didn't.
Oh.
Nothing was seen by people for like a week, and I had to like really push to figure out how to get back into the app's like good favor, because of the strict reason that I'm at 68.3 thousand followers, and I want 69.
And then you're gonna quit,
and then I'm gonna make a video and say, Nice. That's all I want is 69. All I want.
And then he just leaves. He's gonna be the sugar man of TikTok.
Drop.
Drop the mic.
Just disappears. Everybody's wondering, did Riley die in a fire or something like that?
69. Nice. And then I'll be like, next goal 420. Blaze it. And just peace out. And then after that, I'll be like, help me get to 666, please.
666. Okay. So when he says a booktuber named Mike's Book Reviews, is that just shorthand for a guy on YouTube that does books? Reviews books?
Yeah. Booktuber, AniTube is like is anime, manga tube, comic tube, I guess. I don't know. I fall more so onto the manga tuber side now because I have been more embraced by those viewers. But I've talked about it a lot. There's a lot of newer there are a lot of new readers and collectors in manga, a lot of really young ones as well. And I've been collecting manga for almost I think it's been 19 years right now. So 19 years is a lot longer than a lot of people that have been, and I have a lot of advice to give these people. Actually, with that, I this is completely out of left field, but I had this idea, and I'm going to pitch it because I think it's a good one for a video, just a stupid one. I recently repurchased the first series that I ever dropped, 18 years ago.
Do you ever stopped reading?
I only bought the first volume. I thought it was crap, and I dropped it. And so it's only 4 volumes, and I purchased it again because it was super cheap, and I want to make a video returning to the first manga I ever dropped, and then talk about, is it still as bad as I thought it was before? Is it better than I thought it was? Is it worse than I thought it was? I thought it'd be a pretty decent idea, returning to the series the one that got away.
I think you hit it spot on the head, and I've been kind of banging this drum for a while. I think DC and Marvel and traditional Western comics are going the way of the dinosaur. Not that they're going to be completely gone at all. There's always going to be a market for it, but manga is the future. People don't want to admit it, and especially in our community, manga is the future. It is. You just have to embrace it and admit it, and that's cool. If you don't like reading it, I get it. It's fine, but it is what's coming. The Marvel and DC and stuff like that I think they'll always be around. There will always be a market for it, but they're going the way of the dinosaur.
A lot of the issue that I've realized is that there's a lot of misconception also, not about manga, but about comics, in that, and I can say this here because we're amongst comic readers and comic readers who also read manga. There's a lot of younger collectors who collect and read just manga, who believe that comics are Satan's incarnate books because they believe that they have 100 different issues that make it impossible to read them.
But it kind of does. It kind of does, though.
It's like there's these misconceptions. Okay, so this one kid commented on a video of mine, and someone asked me, do you have any Teen Titans recommendations? And I was like, I don't have many Teen Titans books, but I do have the classic Wolfman Perez Omnis, and I have the Jeff Johns Omni that's getting a reprint, so talk to your LCS or whatever about that. And someone commented, I don't understand why anyone would ever buy these when you could have manga. And I commented back, it's all comics. And they say, no, because comics and stuff don't have complete storylines. They don't have, endings and whatnot. Oh. And it's this big misconception because when you look at things from the outside perspective, you're like, there's 850 issues of Spider-Man, of Amazing Spider-Man. It's never going to end. It doesn't have an ending. But when you know even a little bit about comics, you realize, or all of you know this, there are multiple endings because there's multiple storylines by multiple different creators. And we know, reading comics, that, the Incredible Hulk story, the Hulk storyline has been going on since the 60s, but Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk has its own beginning, middle, and end. Greg Pak's Hulk runs have their own beginning, middles, and ends. And so there's that misconception. And the thing I tried to address.
Jeff Parker's Hulks.
Do what?
What about Jeff Parker's Hulk?
That one is beginning, middle, and end on my shelf. Away from your shelves, Jess. But I made a video where I tried to mention, like, look, you have to drop the misconception because manga reads very self-contained, whereas like comics can be self-contained, but you have to come to that realization that you don't have to read from issue 1 and you don't have to read every single issue. You can pick it up wherever you want, in the middle of a run, on the beginning of a run. It just depends on what interests you the most. If you're not interested in stories from the Silver Age, I'm not going to tell you have to read stories from the Silver Age. They're not going to be recommended to you.
I agree with you, but I think comics today is almost impenetrable. And what I mean by that is that it has so much going against it for a younger generation that doesn't want to do the homework for it. And I understand why the younger generation is going, why am I going to try to pick up a volume 1 of a story when I don't have the context for the 60 plus years or anything like that, when I could just pick up the first 3 in 1 of One Piece that's $10, or I could spend $20 to $30 on a hardcover or $15 on a trade that doesn't have that is incomplete. It's a lot more cheaper to buy a 3 in 1 that contains 3 volumes versus 1 volume that has 5 issues. If I buy a 3 in 1, I'm getting 3 whole volumes of a collected edition. On top of that, writers today are not writing comics for kids. They're just not. A lot of these books are not reaching a kid audience. I'm not able to give a book to like Immortal Hulk to my 10-year-old daughter. I'm not going to do that because it would scare her. I'm not going to be able to give even a Spider-Man book to somebody young because chances are they won't understand it. I understand that, yes, we had the 90s and they were all extreme and stuff like that, but this is a different generation of kids and they are not being reached the same way that we were in generations past. This generation of kids, they don't give a damn about comics. They care more about what's going on in Dragon Ball and in One Piece and in Naruto and all that stuff. And it's a thing of accessibility. You've got I keep harping on this. I sound like a broken record. I know people are probably tired of this and somebody's rolling their head in the chat, but it's a thing of accessibility.
Everybody's agreeing with you.
But it's a thing of accessibility where take a look at the Shonen Jump app. $2 a month. $2 a month. Yeah. My kid can read My Hero Academia, new chapters, stuff that comes out every week. They can go back and read the start of Naruto. They can go back and read classic manga that I read as a kid. Am I going to pay $2 a month, or am I going to add another subscription of Marvel and pay $15 a month? I think it's like $10 a month, and they're still behind. They're not catching up. So
digital.
So it's a lot of things that
for comics,
right? It's a lot of things that are culminating into this big issue where I just don't think modern day comics are not reaching kids, and I think it's an issue. I think Darwin Cook said it best a few years ago, where he said a lot of writers today don't have the skill to write for all ages. They don't. They don't. They are writing a story that is mainly for teens and up.
Because you often write what you want to read.
Yeah.
And if you're an adult, you write adult stories because you want to read adult stories. That's why a lot of the success that you'll see with like all ages stuff is like, you know, if the story is written from the perspective of like, this is for my kid, this is for my niece and nephew, that kind of thing, like they're trying to make that happen. But I think that's why like there's a lot, because like I 100% everything you're saying is absolutely true, and I think that's why a lot of the what the industry needs to do is embrace that kind of model of like moving towards further embrace of digital. And what was it that DC's teaming with Webtoons, the app that has like, it hosts free comics and stuff. And I don't know what they're doing on there, but they are hosting that, and it makes sense. Like they're trying to get in on that kind of thing where like you're creating a story that's going to be available for people to read. but the main thing that I wanted to drive in with like what I tell people is drop the idea that you have to read 60 years worth of stories to understand one story.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, and this has been my strategy and my recommendation for people, know what you're interested in and work off of that, and look up what's popular, look up what is well regarded, and use that as a starting point to then circle outwards and expand your horizons into other things. And that's like for video I made on my channel, like I said, search top 25 Batman stories of all time, and then go down the list, see which ones look good to you, read those, and then from there expand, being like, well, I like this one because of the creator, I like this one because of the artist, I like this one because of the villain, I like this one because of this, and then keep using the internet, your search engine tools, to your advantage. And it's not, that's 100% like, it's easy, but it's not as easy as just being like, well, I opened up the Shonen Jump app, and because I saw someone talking about how cool Death Note was, I've never read it, but I can read it on the app because I paid $2. So it's even though like there's the misconception, as I'm saying, about like needing 100% context to understand something, it's still the lack of ease in actually picking those things up.
Right.
So what if Marvel had an app that had day and date issues, same release date, and you paid, let's say it was still $10 a month, but it was day and date available and they had everything on there? What if?
It would mean the death of a lot of comic book stores.
And that's the problem, is that you have to consider both sides of the industry. Like,
that's the problem.
Creatively and with the audience, do you want to bring in the new younger audience with these things, or do you want to, in that, like, what ripple effect does that have for everyone else?
And I think it's a matter of time. I think it's just a matter of that train is coming.
And
we are now
stores, a lot of specialty stores,
right,
focus on outside of just comics. You see a lot of them go to gaming. You see a lot of them go, and when I say gaming, I mean tabletop, go into collectibles, and not just into the comics. It's to the point that like these other things are what are getting people in the door, because those are things that you can't get digitally, and then, or cheaper, I guess. And then the other stuff, like, they're hoping that you can still get people to pick up the books at the same time.
Right. No, I personally just think it's an accessibility thing. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think for a lot of kids today, Japanese culture is far more interesting than Western culture. There's kind of an allure there of a foreign culture, and by reading manga, you get kind of like a little bit of a taste of that. And that fell down. You get kind of a little bit of a taste of that.
Shit, I just had something. My wife was like, hey, do you want to do this or that? And now I completely lost my train of thought. But the conversation I had with this kid, when I say kid, they're usually like, high school age. God, it makes me sound like an asshole. Like I'm calling someone, like if a 30-year-old called me a kid when I was 16, I'd probably be like, dude, shut up. But the conversation was like, there's no story, like they literally said there's no character development, there's no end to the storyline, whatever. And I just kept asking, like, what did you read that gives you that impression? Over and over and over again, because they made a giant blanket statement. And then eventually they're like, like any superhero comic. I'm like, yeah, but what superhero comic in particular? Because I was calling them on the bluff, like, you haven't read anything. As they said, they tried to read like 10 issues of Amazing Spider-Man from the very beginning. And I was like, okay, but that's just your personal opinion on the quality of those stories. So not everything.
I have a question for you, Sal. How far out are DC and Marvel on their subscriptions from being monthly? How many months out are we? 2? I think it's like 2 months at this point. Isn't
Marvel 6 or did they change it?
I should know this. I have the Marvel Unlimited app. I think Marvel is 3 months.
No, I went to the bathroom. Relax.
Just didn't announce it like I did.
I know.
So
I was trying to slip away quietly, and I get called out on it.
it seems like the big two are inching their way to that goalpost, but they're afraid to really cross the line because they know once that they cross that line, it's going to mean the end of a lot of small comic book. It's going to mean the end of a lot of small comic book stores, and those stores will basically just become a boutique. They'll become a boutique store. There'll be a thing where if you want to go play Magic on Friday night, or if you want to go play Yu-Gi-Oh or something, that's where you go.
Yeah, no, it's there, and they're also, a lot of them are leaning into the manga and anime stuff as well, because that is what a lot of people, because it's really like get your people in the door and see what else you can sell them on. It's the same thing that happened like when I was working at GameStop, was when GameStop started to push more on collectibles, and that's a huge piece of their revenue now, is like they push the action figures and pops and statues and other types of collectibles and stuff, as they partnered with like Think Geek, a lot more than just the games and all that, because they know that there's such a market for the digital games that, you know, wasn't there 10 years ago. So it's unfortunate, but the times they are a changing, and if Marvel and DC, like it's already, both of them have now kind of pushed the dagger a little bit deeper by leaving Diamond, because it makes it more difficult. Like the system that the stores use for ordering comics and all that stuff, now they have to account for more than, like, it's a system that was literally created for Diamond, because Diamond had been doing this since before there was all the computerized stuff. So now you have to get new systems in there that deal with other things, ordering from Lunar, ordering now from Penguin. It just makes it all a lot more difficult. Penguin not having the same pricing structure as Diamond did, affecting the prices that customers are able to get. And while in store, in brick and mortar stores, it's different than like us reacting to the percentage on IST going up by 2 or 3%. Like, it's still a thing, because that percentage, then the brick and mortar stores are getting less profit, because they're paying more for the actual books.
Did Diamond I'm just asking, I know the answer, I'm just putting it out there, just asking the question. Did Diamond shoot itself in the foot last year by overreacting to COVID? When they suspended everything, that opened the door for other distribution channels to open up. Is that what happened with Diamond? Because or was DC going to leave Diamond anyway and create Lunar?
That's what DC said, but
they were going to.
Yeah, because it was a contract that was up, and they said, like, you know, the contract was up, but everything, if they were really planning on this happening, we would have been seeing the planning happen a lot sooner. It wouldn't have been all of a sudden just like, and we're gonna have Lunar, and I forget what the one out of Midtown Comics was, but we're gonna have both of these up. And it seems like they're just, no, it wasn't because of that. But I don't know. Do you think that it was a complete overreaction to do that, or do you think that like how do you think they should have reacted to the onset of the pandemic?
Books still got distributed. DC moved quickly to sign up with the other two distributors. I think it was handled really poorly, because that was a bombshell when Diamond just out of the blue said, we're not able to distribute anything because of COVID. But comics kept coming out, and I don't remember that. I mean, graphic novels kept coming out, collected editions kept coming out.
Stuff was coming out like on Amazon and like at Barnes and Noble and stuff that
Yeah.
Diamond distributing.
I mean, and there were collectors out there. I know IST was taken by surprise by how many people came into it all at once, and all these books were selling out. The books were there for them to buy. IST was getting them somehow. But I just remember that was one of the, I mean, lots of things shocked me about COVID, but that was one of the things that I just remember really was a bombshell to me, that Diamond just basically threw in the towel and said, that's it. We can't distribute for the next 2 or 3 months at all. We're shutting down. Did they, was it an overreaction, or was it arrogance on their part that there were no other distributors to go to, and they thought that everybody would have to muddle around for a while till they came back? I just thought it was really poorly handled, and it led directly to their to the death of Diamond. It's been a slow death, but now Marvel's moved also away from Diamond.
And I guarantee it's not going to be much longer before another publisher begins to migrate to either Lunar or to Penguin.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like Diamond's responsible for its own death.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I don't know anybody at Diamond. I don't know any of the comic book industry's workings as well as either of you, or maybe even somebody in the chat. So I'm just talking about how it is perceived by me, that it was a huge shock and surprise. Diamond's announcement, just boom, one day. We weren't even like getting any rumors, or they weren't coming out saying we're struggling here. We may have to alter the way we're doing business in a few weeks. We've been taken by surprise with how quickly this thing has moved. And I understand it did move. It was a day-to-day thing, and it was like one day my wife and I were going out, and the very next day we said, we're not going to that play at the end of March. We're not leaving. We like self-quarantined. We had tickets for a play like at the end of March, and on March 8th we said, March 7th we were going. March 8th we were not. And we said we're not going anywhere, and then they just came out with just boom out of the blue, it seemed like.
And they were still distributing older books too. They were still like, you could still order older titles from Diamond during that time.
Yeah, there was. I will. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I will always remember that next day after the pandemic shut everything down, because I went for a run that morning, and it was a school day, and everything was just empty. It was so eerie. This was like 8 o'clock in the morning. The streets were empty. It almost felt post-apocalyptic. It was just the weirdest feeling going for a run that morning, and usually busy streets in Orlando, and there were no cars out. There was nobody out. Stores were closed down. I will always remember that feeling of like, wow, this really shut everything down.
But I feel like that happened almost even before, like, well, your governor in Florida didn't do it, but the governor in Virginia said there was a quarantine for 6 weeks or whatever it was. And, we were way or 2 months. I can't remember now, but we were way too happy to say, okay, we will just stay in our houses, because nobody knew any good news about it. At the beginning of everything, it was pretty scary, but as Riley said, books were still getting distributed, older books, and IST was still getting books, even though a ton of people came into the market and they were selling out right away. There were still books showing up at IST to be bought. So I feel like this is my perception, that they just handled it really badly.
Yeah.
And it could have been handled a lot better, and things could still be the same had they. I don't believe for a second that things were being planned. I just don't believe that things were being planned. I think everybody scrambled to get their asses covered, and I think Diamond's responsible for its own death.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mention this or make this connection, and then have to wrap up pretty soon.
I gotta get going. I gotta go, guys. So
Okay.
Peace out, everybody.
Where can they find you now that you're doing new stuff?
Comics God 101 on Twitter is where you could find me, and on YouTube, Comics God 101. Look out, because I'll probably have a new video sometime this weekend and a few other things planned in the coming weeks. So talk to you later, guys.
Right on, buddy.
Peace.
Bye.
So I think if I'm gonna try and get into Jeppy's head a little bit.
Okay.
In comparison to how it worked, because I was working at Enterprise at the time, and then eventually, like, you know, a large chunk of the staff, including myself, was laid off.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, because the way that they reacted on a corporate side, it was just, you know, that immediate assumption of like everything's going down. Like, people are not going to be spending money. And with Enterprise, it's a travel company, so it's like people are not going to be traveling. People are not going to be needing these things. And they were largely true, but the thing is, like, for not to talk too much about that side of things, but it's like they were right for a limited period of time, but then they started to struggle to bring everything back to how it was whenever people started needing to travel again. And with Diamond, I wonder if it's like he had this perception of like, if we start like, the stores are not going to be buying as much because customers are not going to be coming in. They're not going to have the need to buy as much. So they are just like, you know what, we're just going to cut everything and say, like, we're not doing distribution at this time, because they're worried about their overhead, and they're worried about, like, if we're not distributing as much, we're not bringing in as much money, we're not going to be able to pay our staff. And so they cut it down to being like, well, we'll just distribute what we have and have a minimal staff on hand to make that happen. And then whenever things started to open back up and go, you know, back to normal, not even before things started to open back up, the fact that, like, they're basically just wrong with their perception. Like, whereas with the travel industry, it's very true. You're like, okay, well, travel is shut down.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like a month or so later that, like, corporate travel began up again. And then Enterprise had to think about, like, hiring people again and hiring new people, hiring back old people. And obviously I didn't go back, but I was talking to people about what was going on. But over on the other side, with the comics and stuff, there was not that expectation, as you're talking about, like, that stores were going to be selling more. There wasn't that expectation of so much growth of the various entertainment industries, like home entertainment, video games, comics, manga, all of these things. There wasn't so much of an expectation that those things were going to boom as much as they did. So it's more or less like they tried to do something that they thought was going to save them from, like, not making, like, being in a dire straits sort of situation with their profits. And instead they created a situation where they couldn't keep up with the actual demand that happened, and they left a ton of money on the table doing that. Meanwhile, the publishers, you know, DC first, because I'm sure Marvel's contract didn't end until this year, and that's why they didn't go until now, especially now that they've seen the example of, like, well, DC did it and they've been fine, like, we could do the same thing. They have a bigger market share anyway, like, they're going to be good. But, like, going with Marvel or with DC leaving wouldn't have happened, because DC leaving, it's basically like they screwed up, they left money on the table, we can see what's happening in the demand for the industry, so we're going to take things into our own hands and try and make it happen. Like, you guys screwed up, we're not renewing that contract. So I feel like that's kind of what it was. Let's save face, let's save money, because people are not going to be spending money. Oh crap, people are spending way more money than we thought they were going to be spending. Yeah, because, you know, you had people who did retain work or were starting to work from home and were able to save money. People were now getting their unemployment, and I will tell you, unemployment was very boosted. Like, for anyone who didn't know anyone on unemployment at the time, I was making a lot more than I was making when I was working.
And there were stimulus checks that went out too eventually.
There were stimulus checks, and there was a lot of people that, you know, I like yourself, who used that on purchases of you know, whatever you wanted. And that was, I just don't think that Diamond expected anything like that to happen. And that's why they decided, like, let's just shutter the doors and not take any new merch in until this is done, or until the next few months, whatever.
Yeah. I don't have any axe to grind with Diamond. I lament their loss because prices have gone up now, as Omar said they would a year and a half ago. He predicted it as soon as Diamond said that. I have zero axe to grind with Steve Jeppy. I had no problem with Diamond whatsoever. I wish they were still as strong as they were. I just feel like they could have waited. If they could have waited a little bit to see what was going to happen. But on the other hand, you know, as Lou was saying, it was like a post-apocalyptic scenario at the time. And it maybe from their standpoint, things looked a lot more dire than I'm seeing myself. So I want to walk it back a little bit and say, I think they created their own problems, and I'm sorry it happened, because I had no problem with them whatsoever. And prices have gone up because of what's happened.
Yeah. No, it was a weird landscape of things.
That's the way to put it.
Continue to get stranger as things move forward. Like, we're going to see more things drop out. We're going to see more companies drop away from Diamond. We're going to see more companies pushing more towards digital. Now we're dealing with the whole Substack thing. And if, depending on I'm going to say, I wasn't on the episode where y'all talked about that, but that's not going to work out very well. It's going to work for like maybe the first year or so, but once the deals start changing, it's not going to survive too well.
The more we learn about it, maybe that should be our topic in 2 weeks, because we're just learning about things. And we're just learning now about Substack and everything, just within the past 2 weeks or 10 days, really. With the Tinian or Tynan, or however he's pronouncing his name, that was the first I'd ever even heard of it. So I think maybe we should learn as much as we can about it. I know we know more now than we did on Monday when the chat was teaching us. But that's probably a good thing for us to talk about in 2 weeks, is Substack, because I think it's an interesting topic, and we need to learn more about it.
Before I learn more about it, I'm going to right now make my only like halfway educated guess on what's going to happen, because one thing that we do know is like there's restructuring after like the first year of like everyone's contract, essentially.
Okay.
That like they don't get the same type of profits and stuff. That first year, there's going to be a lot of like just everything going hard, like balls to the wall, with more creators joining Substack before the bubble breaks and before things start tumbling. But in that time, it's going to be extremely influential on a lot of the mainstream comics industry, with Marvel and DC, and possibly also with like Image, because think about how, if they're taking their stuff over to Substack, Image is creator owned stuff. Like, it's basically going to be, if the creators who are doing their stuff on Substack decide to go get that stuff printed over an Image, it's going to have a lot of ripple effects on like the business model of Marvel and DC, because they're going to be reacting to this new business model. They're going to be reacting and trying to come up with ways to be like, you know, oh, well, if you want, we'll do this new subscription service. We'll do this new digital service. We're going to do this new thing here, and here, to try and keep up with that. And depending on how many creators, because I know like Chip Zdarsky is not leaving Marvel, but depending on how many creators do, it is going to create that ripple effect where they're going to be like, okay, well, now we're going to have to find a whole new generation of up and coming creators who are not already interested in just going through Substack instead. It's going to have, this next year, my prediction is we're going to see some big changes in the mainstream comics industry due to this, whether or not that subscription service succeeds.
Okay, good. And I think we should continue this in 2 weeks and talk about it more.
What if we knew more about Substack?
Right. We can learn a lot in 2 weeks because we've already learned a lot in just 4 days. So we will know even more in 2 weeks. And Omnibus Collector, where can they find you on the social media outlets?
YouTube, of course, at the Omnibus Collector. If you are a manga person, I put up my review of the 8th part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, JoJolion, last night, talking about the themes and stuff that and the messages that I took from that. And I am currently working on, like, literally halfway done filming it, just need to film the rest, a video about the entire works of artist Takeshi Obata behind works such as Death Note and Bakuman. I'm also, of course, they've been poking fun at me being on TikTok all night, and that is something that I'm on, or I talk about comics and manga. And then I am on Instagram, though I don't really post, as the Omnibus Collector, and on Twitter as Omni Collector, though I also don't really post on there either. and OmniDog, what about yourself?
You can find me on Instagram, where I just got a huge number of people watching me eat a bowl of ice cream with cereal on it. I'm on Instagram at omnidogs_vault. And on YouTube, I'm feeling well enough now that I can start doing my own videos again. So I would assume by tomorrow or Saturday, I should have 3 videos made that will be going up 3 days in a row. That's my promise.
Nice.
Right on, man. So thank you to IST for being our sponsor. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to everybody watching this afterwards. Please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe, and feel free to leave us a comment. Peace and love. Peace and love. Thank you, everyone, for watching.